Welcome, everyone. Really excited to have you here for Reducing Friction with Community Cloud. Hope you're ready to dive into all things community.
Before we get started, we have some housekeeping to go through. IC is proud to be a sponsor of Southeast Dreamin' next month in Atlanta. If you're in the area, stop by, say hi, and learn how to springboard Salesforce productivity, adoption, and user experience. Additionally, IC's very own Rachel Garten will be presenting this year to talk about Developer Console for admins and what it can do for you. Visit ic.force.com/southeastdreamin' for more information.
And now for some introductions. My name is Liz Gibbons. I am an 8 times certified Salesforce consultant here with Internet Creations and the subject matter expert on the Community Cloud.
And I'm Christina Christ. I'm the Senior UX UI Designer at Internet Creations. I've been here for a little over 6 years, and I've been doing many communities with the different teams.
If you have any questions throughout the webinar, you can add them to the questions box in the GoToWebinar control panel. We will try to get to every question as they come in, and if we don't, we will have some time at the end for Q&A. Let's test it out. Where is everybody calling in from? You can post right in the questions box. We are located here in Hamilton, New Jersey. That's where Christina, myself, and Stephanie are, and we also have a remote office in Dallas, Texas, and coming soon, an office in Atlanta.
So we have people calling in from Chicago, Philadelphia, Washington State, and West Virginia. Come on, keep those answers coming in. Maryland, and looks like we have people calling in from Nashville as well. Thank you so much for joining us today.
About 2 years ago, I did a webinar with our very own Howard Yermish called what was it? You Can Do That with Communities, something along those lines. And Christina and I wanted to bring it back and update everyone on what has happened in the intervening years. It's been a lot. You're going to get some really cool features that have really changed the experience that both front end and community managers have. Christina's going to walk us through the front end experience first, and then I'm going to dive into the belly of the beast and talk about what community managers can expect.
All right, guys, so let's take a trip to the past. Anybody that's done communities from the beginning kind of recognized these 3 templates. They were the originals. You have Koa, Kokua, which I always say Kalua, but that's a different problem I have, and Napoli. And back in the old days, again, it was just these 3 templates. And if you were familiar with Salesforce and you were familiar with communities, you recognize these anytime you went to a support site or any type of community that was using this kind of like out-of-the-box Salesforce community. Back then and even now, the template that you chose was deciphering the purpose of your community. So if you wanted something that was just more like help-based, if you wanted something that was a bit more portal or a bit more of a customer support community, you would pick a template and that would give you the components to use. So we're going to go to what we have now. And again, that still rings true today, but you have a plethora of templates to choose from here. You know, if you want to do basic help centers, you want to do customer service, if you want to do something specific for partners or just customer account portals, you have all of these basic templates to choose from, and that sets you up for what components you can use, how you want to, you know, set everything up so that you're only dealing with the things that are relevant for what your community is supposed to do. Another cool feature that they have is the build your own template. So this gives you access to every out-of-the-box component that comes with communities. So you don't have to worry about, I need some portal stuff along with a customer service, or I want to do partners and I want to do customers. You have everything. And we actually just migrated our own website over to a Salesforce community, and that's the template that we chose to do. We wanted to make sure we had everything at our disposal so that we could be flexible and come up with whatever options that we wanted for our website.
And the build your own was kind of always available in that you could do the Visualforce and tabs communities, but you then were developing everything. You could use the custom objects, but or standard objects, but you couldn't use the community builder, which is now the experience builder. And the experience builder kind of changed the whole game. Being able to drag and drop things instead of writing code makes everybody's life easier.
Oh, the point and click aspect of it versus having to code Apex and different things like that is huge.
It's huge.
So another thing that's rolled out is community themes. So if you think about what the templates are kind of the purpose of your community. Themes are now the look and feel. So again, when you think about those original 3 templates, unless you were hiring a developer, unless you were doing a bunch of custom coding and a bunch of custom UI changes, your community looked the same. Out of the box, all the communities look the same. That's not the case anymore. You now have all of these templates to choose from. You still have the customer service one there on the top right, which was kind of like that standard UI, but you're not tied to having to do a bunch of custom code to get a unique look for your community. This is huge because it frees up a lot of your time, a lot of your budget, and it puts the power in the admin's hands to just be able to, with a couple of clicks, really give a unique experience for your users and also deliver the same type of support or portal that you wanted to give from out of the box the very beginning.
Yeah, and the first community that you and I worked on together was we had to develop the theme from scratch, right? It wasn't, we didn't have these. And then this most recent one that we did, we just clicked a button. It was essentially the same theme and it saved us so much time.
So much time, not having to do any of that from scratch. I mean, you get to focus on the actual purpose of your community instead of making it look pretty.
Yeah.
So again, I've mentioned this before, but what's the outcome? You don't have to have custom development to have a unique experience for your community. If you look at these 2 screenshots, the one on the left is your standard, that Napoli style template of what the community looked like. And then on the right, you have our website, which is a Salesforce community. This is using the build your own template, and it looks like a completely different experience from what the one on the left is. So two communities, both Salesforce communities, and they look entirely different. Another thing that was really exciting for me is flexible layouts. Prior to being able to use flexible layouts, you basically had 2 options. You were either building your components, if you were going to do any custom and not out of the box components, using Aura or recently Lightning Web Components that would allow you to, with code, build like a 2-column or a 3-column within that component, and then you drag it onto the page and you have it there. You had to use Lightning Design System for any kind of flexibility or responsiveness for web. You had to make sure you built all of that in. Your other option was to build a custom layout. So the standard layout, page layouts, were generally a full width column, where you could do like a 1/3, 2/3, a 1/3, 1/3, 1/3, you could have that, but it dictated the entire page. You couldn't have a section that was full width, a section that was 3 columns, a section that was 6 columns. Like, it deciphered your entire page layout. You could build one custom using, I believe that you had to do that through Aura components at the time. And because I've done a couple of them where you could build a structure like this, where you have these, columns that you can drag the components into, but you had to build it again all from scratch. With flexible layouts, you can build it similar to, if you're familiar with WordPress, where you build sections and you add styles to sections, you add columns to sections, you can build multiple sections on one page. It really gives you the flexibility to be able to customize your page layout and then still be able to drag and drop a bunch of components on there. Very easy, very simple. You can resize them and your components will resize with you. It really, without having to do a lot of custom code, gives you a lot of page flexibility.
And what happens for mobile when you access a community with flexible layouts?
You have to do no custom code. Like, it's fantastic. It's all built with the Lightning Design System, which, if you're familiar with Bootstrap, Lightning Design System is kind of like Bootstrap for Salesforce. And this grid system that you're seeing here, where we have like the 3 columns and the 2 columns, it all collapses based on your media queries. So right now you're looking at 3. If you get to a tablet, it might be, it might go 2 by 2. If you get to mobile, it'll all stack 1 by 1 by 1. So responsiveness for mobile is completely built into all of these flexible layouts.
Awesome. I have been calling it Bootstrap for Salesforce, so I'm glad that that's an accurate representation.
Yes, definitely. Another thing that I'm really excited for is Salesforce CMS. The purpose of a community is to take your Salesforce data and push it to your customers. And you do that whether you're doing for guest user permissions or authentication only, based on your permission sets, you can expose your data to your customers. And with support communities, you see that a lot with your knowledge base, and you have like your knowledge articles that you're pushing out there. But if you wanted to do other content, you really didn't have an option for it. You either had to build that content directly into the community, or you had to build some kind of like custom
CMS Connect.
Yeah, CMS Connect was an option that I've never gotten to work properly. But you could do CMS Connect if you could get everything to work, or you would have to build, custom objects and a custom component to pull those custom objects in so that you had specific data and fields that you wanted to push publicly. With Salesforce CMS, you don't have to do that anymore. You can build content directly in Salesforce, very similar to how you build knowledge-based articles. It's a very similar UI to Lightning Knowledge. All the fields are there, imagery is there, everything that you need. And again, through channels and through permission sets, you can expose that data to your customers. The other really great thing about it is because this is now native and built into your community, you can have your admins and whoever you want to be like content managers to build that content in Salesforce, and they never have to touch the community. They don't have to go into the experience builder. They don't have to have any kind of like community access permissions. All they have to do is like their permissions are just around content. So it really gives you the flexibility to give announcements, any kind of blog style articles that you would want to, events and things like that you want to expose your customers to without having to do it through knowledge or anything custom. So let's hop into Salesforce. We have a little demo community, and I'm going to show you guys a little bit of what I'm talking about hands-on. So let's go into the experience builder first. And as you can see here, we've got the basics of a community set up. We have a couple of components, asking a question and things like that. And we used one of the custom themes. So if you go into the little paintbrush and you click change theme, you're gonna see that screen I showed you before that has all of the different theme options for you. We're currently using Citizen. We like the nice big banner, big call to action. The beauty of having these themes is that you can test any of them without losing your work. It always saves a copy of your community at that like pause point if you change themes, and you don't have to redo work. So if you set up a bunch of branding and fonts and logos and background images and things like that, you don't have to do it again. So you can play, test, do different UIs until your heart's content. You can have one set up for every single one of these, and it won't matter. It saves all of it for you.
It's fantastic.
Oh, it's so much time saved.
Yeah.
So much. Because I don't know if you're like me, but I love playing. Like I'll test all of these out and see which one makes me happiest, So if you go into like Cypress here, if I go to activate this theme, you'll actually see I can either replace and start fresh, so wipe whatever customizations I had on here, or just use the current version that I already started setting up. If I choose that, it goes through a little spin, and then you'll see the theme is activated, and all of the stuff that I set up here prior is active. You can even see that it did pull over any of the components that I had on the page too. So as you're setting up one theme, if you've thrown a bunch of components and things like that, as long as the components work with the page layout that you're on, it's going to migrate all of that over. So you don't have to reset up components and all of those things again as well. I'm going to switch back to our other theme.
Something else to note about the themes is that it doesn't matter what template you choose. We talked about the partner central and customer account portal, customer service. The themes are universal.
Yes.
You're always going to have the same themes, and that, so whatever template you choose doesn't mean, oh, I'm sacrificing the look and feel because I need these features.
Exactly, and it's the same for the build your own. All of these are there. You can use all of the different themes, regardless of what like the purpose of your community is. So I'm going to jump to a custom page that we made. So we have this latest news page, and this has the flexible layouts that I was talking about before, as well as Salesforce CMS here. So right off the bat, what you can see is this is a page that I have one section here that's full width. I have another section here that has 3 columns. And if I hover over it, you can see this little plus where I can add more. If you click inside of them, you'll see all those settings I was talking about before. So you can switch how many columns they are. You can add section styles. So if you want to give it a background image, background colors, if you want to change the width and maybe I don't want this at 100%, I only want it about 75. You get customization on this page per section, not per entire page. And it's just huge when you want to have nice UI tweaks without having to constantly have a developer code stuff for you.
Oh, absolutely.
So one of the things that I'm going to do here is, I have 3 articles here, but I want to add a 4th one. So I'm going to, as easy as that, I'm going to click this little icon that has 4 columns on there. And what you're going to see is it actually now all adjusted. So I have an extra column. And this is great because I spent a lot of time customizing all of these. And I want to make sure that as I'm adding things and moving things, I don't lose any of that. So you can really see the flexibility with how this page is built. If I hit this little plus down here, you're going to see a new section pop up. And if I click in there, again, I can have 4, 2, 2, 2 over here. If I delete that, it's going to automatically update. It will delete any content. So if I had components in here and I decide to delete an entire column, it's always going to warn you like you're getting rid of all the content in there. So move your components first. But I don't have any, so I can delete till my heart's desire. And now you can see like completely custom and everything is drag and drop. So if I decide I want to go into components and I want to add a little rich content editor to this little one here, you'll see. And then if I drag that over, everything adjusts. Everything is completely responsive. So I added this extra column, but now I have no data in it. So how do I get another article in there? One of the things that's really important is when you click on one of your little component boxes, it's going to give you options for everything. And there's a little drop down arrow. If I click this, I have the option to duplicate this component box. And that's huge because if you think about like if you're making a repository of blog articles, you don't want to have to customize these every time because I'm going to duplicate this and then I'm going to show you, did it duplicate? Going to duplicate this. And we're going to wait a few seconds. Come on, community.
When it duplicates, it's going to give us 75 of them.
Yeah, I'm going to
clicked too many times.
way too many times. All right, so before I click in it, I'm going to show you all the different settings that you have while we're waiting for it to duplicate. But when you look at the content layout, you have different layouts for these cards. You have different options to show here. So right now I'm showing 4: date, subheading, featured heading, featured media headline. There's eyebrows that I didn't know what they were before I started playing with these, but it's a little kind of text that goes right up here. You can do field mappings, component style. So how do you want everything to look? You can control each of these like headings and subheadings with different fonts. Like there's a lot of customization that goes into it if you're really playing with it. And I don't want to have to do that 14 times if I want to have a bunch of blog articles on here. So duplicating, and I'm going to give this a little refresh just to see if that shows up 19 times now. I wish I could sing music or hold music.
I was going to say, I was going to do the Jeopardy theme, but
there we go. Look at all these duplicates. So I'm just going to take this one here and I'm going to drag it over. And you can see like how easy it is to just like drag and drop. There we go. And now all I have to do is click in here and change the content. So when I click this, it's going to give you a repository of all the public content for this specific channel that you've created, and that is also published because you can have content in draft form. So I'm looking here and I only see my 3 articles. So that reminds me, oh, I have to either create another article that I want to put there or publish the one that I haven't published yet. So I'm going to close this out. I'm going to go over into this tab here. And this is basically the interface for Salesforce CMS. So you have your list of all your content. You can control again by channels. So your channels are, they could be based on different communities that you have, different audiences, different permissions. You can have a lot of channels that like kind of control and organize all of your content.
And you can publish content to multiple channels. It's not, you can only assign it to one. It can be.
Right. So if you're doing some kind of event and you have 3 different communities based on like partner or this or that, you can have that article show up to all 3, 1, or just keep it in draft form. So I have one here that's in draft. I've set it up for this webinar. And you can see, again, very similar to if you're going to be building like lightning knowledge articles, your title, you have a WYSIWYG editor so that you can have nice rich text and formatted content. You've got your banner images to include here. And then the little excerpt, which is kind of that's that little text in your tile that tells you what your article is about. And then you have the content slug. And basically that's the title of your page if you were going to give the URL to someone. So if you think about your website, internetcreations.com/slug, whatever page you're on. And those are all customizable. They pre-populate it based on the title that you put in, but you can change that because this is quite a long slug, if you ask me. I don't want to have to type that out to someone. All right, so this was saved as a draft. I'm going to publish it. We are going to publish it. And we get a little toast notification saying that everything is live. So if we go back to Experience Builder, refresh the page, my 19 versions of this component, hit change content, and now you'll see the new one is like on the top based on your published date. This is the one that I wanted to show. So I'm going to hit save. And then you'll see you have your component here. I have to do one tile update. Just click this. And then you'll see everything else has moved over. So same size banner image, same size fonts, everything has nicely just adapted to my new layout. Okay, so I'm gonna hop back into the template, to the webinar really quick. And there's one other thing that I wanted to talk to you guys about, and that's the case deflection component. It is one of my favorite out-of-the-box components because it really puts help into the hands of your customers. So without having to have them, create a case, it surfaces knowledge-based articles for them right before that gets sent to your agents. There was a statistic that I really love from AskSpoke that said 69% of support tickets are solved in a single communication. So if you think of what that means, a ticket comes in with a problem, your agent responds one thing back. Generally, it could be a knowledge-based article that has steps for how to, fix their issue, or just the steps in that email. Case is closed, like one-stop shop. Imagine if your customers can do that for themselves. So they have a problem, they go to your website, they go to the support page, they start typing in an issue, and just like that, on the left, they start seeing relevant articles based on the issue that they're having. They click it, they read the solution, they implement the solution. They never had to contact you for support. Your agents aren't bogged down with a bunch of cases. Your KPIs get better, and your customers are happier because they got answers fast. They didn't have to wait hours or days, depending on how long it takes to respond. They just have their answers. I'm going to hop over to our website for a second because we actually, like I said, we've implemented this on our site. So you can see as I start typing in here, the articles start changing. So if I click this, because this is about to match what I was going to type, you can see what the symptoms are. You can see the solutions. You can see like a status if there was some kind of like update that was currently happening. So if this was an issue that was happening for a while or across multiple channels or things like that, you get all of that relevant information right there.
And that contact support form is the contact support form is a global action, and you can set that so that, you know, you see here we've got name, phone number, email address. Well, if you're logged in to a community, why would you want to put that? You've already given them your credentials. You can have a different action for a logged in user, and you'll pre-populate that information so we know who submitted it and they don't have to take the extra step.
Yeah, any type of fields you can save from people having to fill out a form is huge. And like, yeah, like we don't have authentication here right now, but when we were setting it up, we did the same thing with the global action, so that name, phone number, email address, it can either be pre-populated for you or they don't even have to show up because you're authenticated. We know who you are. Alrighty, so I'm going to hop back into the webinar.
All right. Now, this might look like a scary slide, but it was scarier like yesterday. You can see that there are changes to guest user permissions that Salesforce is rolling out. And initially, they had planned to roll them out through March. And you can see here all of these say complete tasks by February 29th. That's Saturday. Not too far in the distance, but Salesforce discovered some issues here and is delaying that. We should have a new date at some point in March for it to roll out, probably in April. But you know, aside from the big, you know, due soon, exclamation points, required, all of the doom and gloom graphics, these really are not scary changes. Securing the guest user org-wide defaults, Salesforce is essentially creating a third type of org-wide default, and it's private and you can't change that. So you have the internal org-wide defaults for your normal users, your internal users, you have the external ones for customers that are logging into a community, partners that are logging into a community, and then you have guest user, a public site, you know, the default access to any of your data should be private. It's very simple. You're not going to be able to change it going forward. You are going to be able to create sharing rules to share records with guest users. Assigning records created by guest users to a default owner, you know, guest user isn't really, I mean, it's a user because Salesforce functions on profiles, but you know, it's anyone who visits your site publicly. It's not an individual. And so having a default owner, if they create a case, if they create a lead, is just a best practice that you should be following already. And Salesforce is making it easier to do that with any custom object you can set. You set sort of a default owner for anything created within a community. And then removing view all user permissions from guest user profiles. Salesforce is going to take that checkbox away in summer 20, so it's best to uncheck it and make sure you're ready to go. It's pretty simple. Salesforce now has in the administration workspace in communities, there is a checkbox to say, let guest users see other users in this community. And that means the guest user of that community can see other users, they can see the forums, they can see the people interacting on it, but they don't see all users, internal users, other community users, any of that. It's just a little too much exposure for that permission, and so Salesforce is taking it away. If your profiles are set up appropriately, these won't really impact you. You won't even notice they go into effect. But definitely review these alerts and make any changes that Salesforce recommends, and you'll be ready to go. Pinning posts was a request on the first community that Christina and I did together, and you could only pin one post, and they wanted more.
Heartbreak.
And so our developer built totally custom forums so that they could pin multiple posts. And look at us now. Salesforce is letting you pin 3 posts. It's just, you know, it's one of those simple things that from our experience makes a big difference.
Oh yeah, if you want to think about using an out-of-the-box component like this versus because of one feature that's a requirement and you have to put hours upon hours into custom developing something that exists out of the box just for one feature, because you can't just add the feature to it with code.
Mhm.
Like, think of the amount of time difference that would go into something like that.
It's wild. And you can see here that the articles, you can see, the most or not the article, sorry, the forum posts, you see, missing WUG from X25, it's 3 minutes ago, the please read community guidelines 4 minutes ago. And then the third one is from several days before that. It is in chronological order. And then we only have 3 posts in this section anyway, so they're all pinned. But as more people post, those posts that got pinned will get pushed down and you'll see more recent things. And so pinning them makes it just that much easier to find them. You're not going to scroll or have to go through pages to find them. They're there. They're easy to pin. They're easy to unpin. Just makes life a little easier. In winter 19, Salesforce added some report types for reporting on the questions your users are posting. This is really great if you're a community manager and you want to know what people are asking about and where the holes are in your knowledge base, in your documentation. Salesforce has an an App Exchange package of dashboards and reports for communities, and they update it every time they roll out new features for community reporting. The most recent package is from winter 19, so these are the freshest reports you can get. And honestly, I use it in every project with communities because it covers 99% of the use cases that people want reports on, and it's just stellar.
So let me ask you a quick question. When you're reporting on questions, what is the benefit? Like, what steps would I take? Like, let's say this, where can I buy an X25 widget? Let's say a version of that question showed up like 20 times in my reporting. Like, what does that tell me? Like, what should I be doing as the community manager, as just sort of a customer support manager?
That would tell me that it's a frequently asked question, and maybe that should be an article. Like, people want to know that information and they need to find a place. They should be able to find it in an official place, not oh, well, I found my X25 widget at this place. I found mine at that place. It should be a company saying, hey, these are the vendors we work with. Go and buy an X25 from there.
Gotcha, that makes sense.
When I first worked on a community, before I even started at Internet Creations, I was working in higher ed. Our community was geared towards high school students, college students, adult learners, people who were, finishing their education and then moving into the workforce. And after every presentation that we made to these groups, didn't matter if it was, the Gen Z high school senior or the boomer adult going back to school to get, a new career, everyone asked, is there an app? And we were a grant funded project. We were small. I was the developer and I'm not a developer. I can write a couple lines of code. And the answer had to be no, we couldn't do it because of the work that it took to get through the security checks, get through all of the different hoops that Apple and Google make sure that, you're not putting crap up on their app stores. And now Salesforce is handling all of those hoops. Salesforce is going to do your security for you. This is a beta feature, but it, I think, has the power, it's hopefully going to come to GA soon, and it's going to change especially some developers' lives who won't have to go through all that work.
So when you're talking about having your community as a mobile app, what is the benefit of that? So like versus me just knowing that a community exists or just looking for some kind of support. So I go into Safari or whatever browser I use on my phone and like search it or type it, visit the community. What's the benefit of having a mobile app?
I think if you're having people log in, you're having them heavily interact with the apps, or they're uploading documents, they're asking questions, answering questions, filling out forms. Having an app lets you store credentials, lets you have a place to go that you're not like, oh God, I gotta type in my URL again. Someplace where it's sort of a high touch thing that you're gonna be going to frequently to update your stuff or to check on things, versus I'm Googling this and I'm gonna find your community because your knowledge article has popped in the SEO.
Okay, so like what it sounds like to me is when you're asking for a lot from the portal users or the customers that are going to be logging in, so uploading files or different things like that, this just makes it easier for them. So Absolutely. It sounds like adoption of your app and the things you're asking them to do will improve.
Yeah, definitely. And now it's time for a little bit of demo from me. I'm going to jump back into the experience builder here, and I'm going to jump into administration. I'm just going to show you that checkbox for view all users. If we go into preferences, you can see here, let guest users see other members of this community. This is what's replacing view all users. So guest users will still be able to see the content that your other members have contributed, be able to see their names and whatnot, but they don't have the view all users in the org entirely. Just a little bit of security there.
It actually, as you're talking about it to me, it kind of makes me laugh inside a little bit that there was an option to have guest users view all users. Like, this makes so much more sense to me, and it's just a check of a box.
Yeah. And there are, I should just preface with, there are a bunch of other guest user permissions coming down the pike for that summer 20, and Salesforce is announcing those and rollout dates. And then we're going to jump into our dashboard. So this is the dashboard workspace, and this is the package of dashboards that Salesforce has on the App Exchange. Free download, wonderful. And you can see here we have those top unanswered questions. This would tell us, if that where can I buy the X25 widget had been liked, 5 times, 25 times, whatever, it had more than any of the others, and it didn't have an answer, then you could say, okay, we need to have someone from our team go here and answer the question, or maybe, this is something that rises to the level of a knowledge article.
And it's cool that it actually lets you sort by likes, because if you have a question that 300 people have liked and it's unanswered,
something's wrong.
Go get somebody to answer. You guys need to get an article out or something.
Yeah. And there's also this questions weekly, created versus best answers. So best answer, basically, if you're familiar with the success community in Salesforce, you select best answer, and that says, this has been answered. We really don't need more input at this time. And so you could see here how many questions are being created versus how many are actually being answered over the course of a week. Just makes it a little bit easier to understand the volume of questions, and if, whether it's your community managers, your customer support reps who are in there answering questions, how they're doing with getting those questions answered. Also going to jump to the pinning posts. You can see here, we've got our sorted 3 posts here. It's super easy to then unpin a post, say, you know what, we're done with that one. It's not important anymore, and it just drops out. You can still see it, of course, is here in our sorting. And unfortunately, we're not going to be able to demo the mobile publisher. My phone did not want to cast to anything today. It just was not connecting. Oh, I was right on it. Back to. And then last, but certainly not least, and perhaps first in our hearts, community deployment. Salesforce has added more components to be deployable via change sets. The Lightning Community Template, Lightning Community Themes, both are related to any of the branding and changes you make to the look and feel of the site or of the community. And these were things that prior you would have you had to kind of hope that you had 2 monitors on hand so you could have sandbox community in one monitor, production community in the other, and then just copy and make sure that you didn't miss anything and hope that you didn't miss anything.
This is near and dear to my heart because like I mentioned earlier, I had just finished migrating our website over to a Salesforce community, and community deployment didn't exist. Standard deployments did. So if you had your specific permission sets, any custom components that you built, any obviously knowledge base articles, anything you did in Salesforce, you could deploy. Anything you did in what at the time was Community Builder, but now Experience Builder, none of that was deployable. And you saw earlier, just when I was customizing one small article component, how many features there were in there, how many settings, how many different things you could customize. If you multiply that by an entire template and an entire theme, you're talking about branding sets, colors, fonts, page layouts. Like there's so much that gets involved, like is involved in building a community. And this isn't everything, but it's a step in the right direction. Just being able to do those 2 things are going to save you so many hours when you're going from sandbox to production, because
so many headaches.
So many headaches. You don't have to have stock in Advil anymore. I mean, it's just, it's really, really a step in the right direction for deploying communities. Obviously you always want to build in a sandbox first because you want to test those global actions on your forms and different things. You want to test authenticated, you want to test your permission sets and your guest users and whatnot. So it makes sense that you would have to build this in a sandbox first, and then to replicate all of that work, it's a lot. I'm really looking forward to when they add pages to this, because if you think about how much you have for a template and a theme, each individual page has page settings, SEO that you set up on it, layouts like that, the flexible grids. While it's fantastic that you can build all of that out nice and flexible, but you have to redo all that. You have to reset up all your sections, reset up all your components. So I can see that they're moving in that direction, and I could put money on it. Like it really wouldn't surprise me within like the next couple of Salesforce updates that pages, and eventually you'll be able to package a whole community and just push it over.
Yeah.
And I think that I've seen, like we've pointed out like a couple of our favorite features, but there's a plethora more.
Oh yeah. These are the things that we kind of looked at the past 2 years and said, what are the things that have been most impactful for us in our day and when we're working on communities? But Salesforce is kind of whole hog into communities, is really pushing the adoption and use of it, and they are building it out and making it better with every release. There are a whole bunch of things that I get excited about, and then I text Christina and I'm like, oh my God, did you see what's coming?
And then I freak out and I'm really excited. So I'm spinning up demo orgs and playing with it. I had that experience just with Flex layouts. That came out in beta just as I was finishing up our website. And with certain requirements and page requirements that we had, I needed that type of flex section layout.
Mm-hmm.
And I had to code it all by hand because there was no other option. So I was building those custom page templates and, all of those different things. And then as I hit live in production, I see the beta coming soon, flex layouts. And I was like, oh God. So then I was playing with them, and man, would that have saved me a ton of time if I didn't have to code it by hand.
Yeah. And with that, we are on to questions.
Yeah, so we actually had a question come in about CMS, and this person wanted to know, is CMS automatically included with Community Cloud, or is there an additional cost for that?
That is a good question. I believe it is included with Community Cloud, but I would want to do some research before I made any purchasing decisions. I'm not 100% on that.
Yeah, so we can look into that.
We can look into that. Yeah.
So another question is around the topic of development time spent from the past compared to now. So you both said that you've worked on communities with both the new templates and layouts and also where you had to do a lot of custom development. Can you talk a little bit about what the difference between those two projects were?
Oh God, if I had to think about those two projects and just off the top of my head, I would say the custom development versus being able to use all of these now included themes and whatnot had to have reduced the time about half. It's a ballpark number, but I feel pretty strong on it. And Liz, you can correct me if you think that I'm off base here, but I would honestly say that I think about half of the time was spent on the ones where we could use all these out of the box components.
Yeah, that absolutely rings true with what I've seen just in, scoping communities. We used to go back to that community project we scoped and that had all this custom stuff, and now we're just like, well, cut that line. Well, we can't use this as our template anymore. Let's use one of the newer ones because we don't need all of this heavy lift development.
And the nice thing is that like, we don't want Salesforce developers to start sweating here, because it lets them focus on more important things to develop. So rather than spending their time on UI things and making things just look and lay out differently, they get to focus on building components custom for your organization that are going to better serve your customers. So maybe there's something you need specific that just isn't out of the box. Rather than spending development budget on making a page look a certain way or making the theme look a certain way, you can put that budget into actually giving your users components and features that are going to make their lives better. It's going to increase adoption of them using your community, and it's going to just give them a more delightful experience. They're going to want to work with you more if they have that at their disposal.
And it's going to set you apart because you have it.
Yes.
And it's going to make you stand out.
That was great. That actually answered one of the second questions that we had about, why then would you tap into development resources for a community if you already have so much customization on the front end of standard Salesforce Community Cloud?
Yeah, it's just they get to then do so much more for your community, for your org. You can have the admins build this, I think the big Salesforce phrase is with clicks, not code. And that's exactly what we're showing here. I mean, with a couple of clicks, a couple of customizations, you have a functional community. But then with custom development, you just take it that step further and just really wow your customers.
Mm-hmm. So we'll be hanging out here for a few more minutes if you have additional questions. So keep them coming. Otherwise, all of this will be sent out to you within the next 24 hours or so, along with the slides. I know someone was asking about that earlier. But thank you so much, Christina and Liz. We do have one more little slide that we'd like to show you. So if you want to learn more about Salesforce Community Cloud certifications, we just posted a blog up on blog.internetcreations.com on how to inspire more confidence as a Salesforce Community Cloud consultant. Liz, you are one of our Salesforce Community Cloud consultants. So do you want to just kind of very briefly overview what it's done for you in terms of your knowledge?
Yeah, I think I was the first Community Cloud certified consultant at Internet Creations, or one of the first. And it's just one of those things where I used to walk into meetings and was, oh, I have to be the subject matter expert here. I better study up. I better, know my stuff. And I did before the certification, but there is something to say, oh, I have this cert. Salesforce has also said, yes, you know your stuff. You are ready to talk about it. And sometimes, we have clients who just want to talk to a cloud communities consultant to say, okay, we're thinking about this. What are your thoughts? What are the features? And just kind of ask a lot of questions, but not actually do any work. And having the certification has really given me the confidence to walk into those meetings and go, yeah, I'm the subject matter expert here. Let me help you find it.
Yeah. You're the boss here. Well, that's really helpful. So if you're interested, Internet Creations prides itself as a learning environment, and we do have a whole bunch of information on our blog, on our website for you to take away. Lots of tips on this blog article. It's really, really great. So please go check that out. Again, that's on our website, internetcreations.com. And if you have any questions regarding Community Cloud, please let us know. Liz is here. We have other consultants on the team who would be happy to answer your questions. If you're a solo admin, or if you're looking for more information, generally speaking, you want to dip your toe into Community Cloud, we can help. And we'd be happy to. If you're going to be, another plug for Southeast Streaming, if you're going to be in Atlanta next month, come chat with our team. We'd love to talk to you about anything and all things Salesforce. And we will check in with you all very soon. Thank you so much.
Yeah, thank you for joining us.
Yeah, thank you guys. Thanks for sticking out the hour with us.
All right, see y'all later. Bye.